This is the meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee, and tonight we're going to do the town manager report, the 2023 expenditures and current budget, and then some other business. Tom Dow, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It means we have to pretend it's a flag over.
Flag gone? Oh, Jesus. Hold on for a minute, please.
There you go. There it is. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Jim, for finding the flag. Okay, we've got a section here, any public comment before we start with the other information. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Town manager report.
Good evening. So you should have received the end of May finance report from the finance director. She's away on vacation. At this point, we're in good shape. We've expended 46% of the budget where we would normally be at a 42%, given the year percentage we're at. Mind you, a lot of our items are paid in advance, including we just this past month paid the service agencies. We've made the contributions already to the capital reserve and expendable trusts. So we're in a fairly good position as far as that's concerned. Revenues are coming in nicely. Taxes are looking good at this point as far as collections. Going down through, you may see the water fund looks a little shy. What we believe is going on here, if you can believe it, with the amount of rain that we're experiencing, people simply aren't watering the lawns. So we believe that is one of the factors we're seeing in lower water consumption compared to the past 3 years. It does tend to ramp up in that May, June timeframe. It's a bell curve essentially, and it ramps up through the end of August, and then it drops back off. So we're in good shape as far as the operating budget is concerned at this point. Capital projects, we've had a lot of bid openings over the past couple of weeks. One to include the fuel budget for the 2022, 2020, or 23, 24 fiscal year. So we're interpreting those now. That bid opening, I believe, was Thursday afternoon. We were able to get the bid opening done for the sewer extensions on Forest and Varney Roads. We're actually conducting interviews tomorrow. Regarding the contractors, we've received 2 bids. We're going to interview the 2 contractors to have a discussion which way we should go. As far as that is concerned, we're working on some road bids as well. The roads, Green Street has been awarded. It's under the amount that we appropriated, so we feel confident about being able to deliver that. Public safety building work is in process. Still anticipating breaking ground early September. We've been, as staff, having weekly meetings on that, and been meeting regularly with the architect and engineer and construction managers. We also, over the past month, have tied in the Energy Committee into this project. So we'll see if we get any savings in the future based on what the Energy Committee is making for recommendations. But they've stated that the product brought forward to this point looks really quite good. So there may be some efficiencies there, but not a lot. CIP guidelines are out to department heads. They were approved by the Board of Selectmen. And July 19th, the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing and hopefully approving the guidelines for the 2024 budget process. Short of that, I think you have the report in front of you. If there are any specific questions, I can certainly try to answer them, or at least be able to take a note back and get you a definitive answer on the questions you may have.
Jim, what are we looking for on CIP for next year?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
What are we looking for CIP for next year?
So CIP right now, we are having a phase 2 environmental assessment performed on the MED generation building and the community center to help us develop a path forward for that. I don't think you will see a capital project in 2024, but I think you might see an ask for some engineering monies to go beyond that phased assessment through the building. I imagine short of that, it'll be pretty typical as far as your roads. We've got a couple of water projects that we'd like to continue with. One of those being the seasonal water lines. We still do have a balance of funds left from the bond we secured last year, but that balance of funds is not enough money to be able to do the next project that we feel that should be tackled. So that will be asked through the CIP process. Additionally, we had HDR, they're one of our contract engineers, do a basis of design report for the wastewater treatment facility. That is currently in the hands of the contract operator, Woodward and Curran, to look at that basis of design report and make sure that it's in alignment with what the plant needs to have done. Short of that, I'm not sure of a whole lot of CIP items other than the normal reserves for the highway department, equipment funds. Fire department, we won't be doing the equipment fund because we did that 5-year lease on a piece of apparatus, so you shouldn't see that, but that'll be tied into the budget.
So probably a couple $100,000 for the CIPs for next year.
No,
Less?
seriously.
Less? No, I'm talking new CIPs.
New CIPs.
New CIPs.
So the new CIP really will boil down to, I would guess, 300,000 probably for the basis of design study for the community center.
Okay.
Short of that, you know, I don't feel that we are going to be in a position to come forward with a whole lot other than engineering money for the wastewater treatment plant. I think that's still a year or two out.
Okay. Tom? I'm sorry.
I recall a discussion about trying to isolate the waste of water through leakage. Is that all part of the?
Yeah, so if you recall from last year's CIP process, there was a project called Complete Streets, which actually entailed Pickering Corner down to the Smith River Bridge to be done as one complete project.
Mm-hmm.
That was broken out for a number of reasons. One, our engineers sitting there telling us, you can't do these water, sewer, and stormwater projects all in one take over a season. You should do one, come back, do the next, and then come back and do the next. So that's what we're planning on doing. When we do the stormwater, which would be phase 3 of that, we should see some significant reduction in that I&I that's going to the wastewater treatment plant from South Main Street.
Bob, do you have a question?
You know, John, you asked that about a couple $100,000. Historically, we've been doing, for the last 10 years, I think we've been doing between $750,000 and $1 million towards road repair. And did you
I'm
not
talking
include
about,
that?
no,
You're
didn't
talking
include
about
that.
over and above that?
Yeah,
Okay.
just new stuff.
Yeah, so I don't have anything on the financial stuff, Jim. Thank you very much on that. And you answered my question about the base study and,
Mr. Loman?
please.
I have a comment, being the CIP representative. CIP is supposedly a long-term planning document. It is not a budgeting process, and I think we're gonna change a couple things in terms of what's going to be on the CIP, i.e. road repairs, which are an annual thing, capital reserve contributions and so forth will not be considered as far as CIP is concerned. New capital projects, yes, capital projects that have been approved will still remain on the spreadsheet, but we're not gonna talk about annual stuff that normally comes before the budget committee as warrant articles. So,
Well, how will they come to the warrant articles then, if they don't come through the CIP?
well, they don't have to come through the CIP to go in the warrant.
So one of the things that it'll say on the form when we get ready for a project, it'll identify the funding mechanism as a capital reserve fund or a bond. So it'll be identified. So we're only doing actual projects,
Yep.
not savings accounts.
That's basically, I just want everybody to understand that I'm gonna be lobbying for that change to be made in the CIP process this year. Because we're getting caught up in our underwear in our CIP meetings with a lot of stuff that's kinda going over hoed ground already.
Fully baked.
Well, yeah, and we really wanna spend the time on new projects, because we've got new debt service and new stuff to be concerned about. The normal capital reserve stuff is, quite frankly, they're really budget items and not CIP items. So, anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Just an advisement, that's all.
Anybody else?
I don't know if that's, well, it is what it is.
You guys got any opinion, the select board, or you on them doing that?
Yeah, we believe it's the right way to go.
Okay.
We've already had a couple of preliminary conversations about it. So for example, the fire department. The fire department, every year, they do a good presentation, but the only time we're really gonna have them make an actual presentation is when they have a project teed up. So that annual appropriation will go in, as it normally would have. But if he's got a project coming within a 3-year window, then he's going to start refining the numbers and start making presentation. Now, okay, in 2027, we have this project plan. And the funding mechanism is our traditional capital reserve appropriation.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I just have a quick question. Now, would that be something that you're gonna bring before the budget committee and we're gonna vote on moving that off of CIP, or you're just, that will?
No,
be
I'm just
happen?
advising you that that's the position we're taking. There's gonna be, because we get tied up with a lot of capital reserve contribution stuff that really is kind of a football in CIP. It really doesn't belong in CIP. The discussion on that belongs either here or with the appropriate department heads. We shouldn't be wasting time in CIP. I don't like to use the term wasting time, but we're spending an inordinate amount of time on old business rather than new planning. And that's why we're going in the direction we're going.
We will be spending the time at our public hearing and the deliberative session talking about them now. So you have to, there has to be a place where they are teed up.
Oh, they'll get teed up at my level when I hand the budget and the warrant off to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And they'll be backed up with, these are the projects in the upcoming years, but this is the funding mechanism, how we are doing it.
So you're gonna do the mechanics to see that all the numbers are good, as far
And
as.
that'll be completely transparent when we get to that point of, we're asking for, let's just say, use Parks and Rec, for example, because that is a good example. They raise and appropriate about $25,000 a year. Number one, that does not meet the threshold of CIP annual appropriations. So we'll raise and appropriate that. However, once Parks and Rec gets to a point of purchasing a groomer for $220,000, that all of a sudden becomes a CIP project. And we're gonna focus that within a 3-year window.
It just, to me, I'm sorry. To me, you know, most of them except the Parks and Rec come within the definition of CIP plan. You know, the project is $100,000 plus, and the project, the results of the project, it lasts for at least 5 years. Your trucks last for 20 to 25 years, and your projects that come through the CIP, like this building and the pub next door, you're hoping it's gonna last you 50 years. So, you know, so basically what you're doing is you're not following, I guess you're excusing yourself from following how the rules have been laid out for CIP. You know, so I'm just wondering if that is gonna bite you somewhere down the road. I mean, you could, at CIP, you could, like, one meeting could probably go to all of the, you know, that could be done probably in like 20 minutes. You know, you know what you want, and that's it. You just, yes, we're gonna do it, and, you know, that's.
Could be a lot of that, a lot of time sake.
That's my feeling on it. You know, I did it for 8 years. I mean, I know what.
I understand what you're saying, Bob. It isn't etched in concrete, but we've got to find a way to make the CIP meetings more productive. We're getting dragged down by a lot of stuff that is automatic and happens every single year, like road maintenance. Doesn't need to be part of CIP at all.
Oof.
Yeah, I disagree. Why is this change? We've done this for the past 40 years, and every other community does it the same way. Why are we changing?
Well, I think it was discussed with the planning board. I believe it also went through a meeting with the planner, myself, and 2 Board of Selectmen members in conjunction with the finance director. And if I remember correctly, the CIP project is about projects, not necessarily funding. So we want to stay focused on the project. So when we get within that 3-year window of a project, okay, this is what that boils down to. It's going to cost us $1.2 million, and we've got $800,000 in the bank. How over the next 2 years do we get there? And it really is going to hone in on the focus of the projects. So that's the rationale behind some of it.
So the feeling is this will reduce time, it will improve accuracy? Okey doke.
Another question I have, John, is, so for years, what we did way back when was to come up with a number that we were going to reach and try and set that as a ceiling. So for several years, we were raising taxes up until we got to that number, which we defined as in the ballpark of $2 million. And we actually lived by that for a number of years. And that's the definition of
$2 million
that.
at the CIP level.
What's that?
$2 million at the CIP.
At the CIP level.
CIP level.
And then what we spoke about quite a bit was trying to keep the debt service spending as a part of the operating budget at a certain percentage. We always argued about that. You know, and I'm thinking you're losing some of your oversight just on those items by doing this. You know, geez, I was hoping to say nothing tonight.
I'd like to do a motion, that, just an advisory motion of what our opinion is concerning changing the CIP from what it currently has to something new.
Yeah, I'll second it. And on the motion?
Any more?
So you're suggesting that we
Just
should
that
have some
we feel
input,
as
a
a
little
committee,
input?
we'd rather keep it the way it is rather than change it, basically. Is that, you can?
Yeah,
that's
I-
everything?
I'd like a little more clarity on what it is about the current process that occupies so much time when we've got a project in the CIP and we're putting X number of dollars away per year. Is the discussion or the time spent on whether that project should be pushed out, moved forward? What's occupying so much time when we know what the project is already, and we know how much we're putting away per year? Help me understand that.
Right, which is exactly why it doesn't need to be part of the CIP. If it's already been approved and it's already a capital reserve account and there's already a set amount set aside or planned for to be put into that capital reserve account on an annual basis, it therefore is not capital, it's not capital planning as far as,
Yeah, okay.
hang on. As far as the committee's concerned, we're spending a lot of time reviewing those projects.
But you're taking all that stuff off the spreadsheet, though.
No.
That's the part that gets me.
Well,
The
we can
spreadsheet
leave
should.
it, we can leave it, it's not, the spreadsheet itself can be, all those items you're talking
This,
about.
there
Road
will be,
repair,
there
capital
will be a
reserve accounts.
spreadsheet.
What will all these items be on it, though?
Yes.
The projects
But they're not
will.
gonna be part of the capital project part of the new project thing. It'll be down on the bottom. We're gonna redesign that whole spreadsheet so that the annual capital reserve stuff, which goes on every year, the road repairs and all the projects that are already been approved and are scheduled, were approved, say, 3 years ago, and they're still marching forward towards their,
Will they be listed on a spreadsheet or not?
Yes.
They will be listed on a spreadsheet.
yes.
Okay, so,
So
They're
I
not
think
gonna
one of the
dis-
things that
they're not
happens,
gonna disappear.
unfortunately, is the CIP committee gets hung up in the capital reserve appropriation, and that gets them confused at times with the project, which is separate. The appropriation and the project are separate. And, as you noticed over the past couple of years, there's been little attention paid to moving things around in the schedule. That's what I think one of our goals is to have this committee actually take a look at this document and say, oh, we've got a spike here. Is there any way we can move this way or that way to help alleviate that spike? And that has been grossly missed the past 2 years.
When you say spike, you mean unexpected expense?
Well, for example, debt service. Debt service may, a big spike. Or, to your point, there may be actual capital monies that are gonna get spent, and there's a big spike in the money that's gonna be expended, which is a concomitant debt service spike.
I don't know if this fits, but Port Wedland started out as a project for $276,000 CIP. How much is it now?
I don't remember.
Just shy of $1 million.
Okay, so those are those little, those are little toe poppers that happen. We had, I know we had a little water incident down on Whitegate Lane that wouldn't even have fallen into the CIP, but now it's a major project.
That's a kind of emergency spending, though. I mean, that's.
But your question, Bob, back to your question though, is your concern about letting or allowing those things to come off the spreadsheet, this notion of trying to keep the CapEx at $2 million? I'm with you, but I'm not sure that, because I agree, we've got to watch our capital spending, but I'm not sure that the way it's, at least what I've seen as a former planning board member, CIP gets very, very bogged down. And I think the select board is trying to unbog it.
I remember us going through that stuff in a day. Now, I have other issues.
I've been out of that for 2 years. so
Yeah, I have
went-
other issues with CIP, which can be attached there, but which bogs you down.
Yeah.
John, one thing, I interrupted Bobby, she had a question earlier, so I just wanna, if you have something.
Oh, you think I have to find that back in my brain now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Rewind.
Didn't you
I know,
write it
really.
down?
No. So I guess my question is just based on what you're proposing versus your answer. Where's the oversight projecting that forward
With the department head.
with,
And the board
with the
select-
department? So it's just you with the department heads, but we don't have any elected officials for that oversight?
You do when it gets close to being a project.
Because I think I think my concern is moving it from your oversight, now we're not looking at having the citizens have oversight, but yet we just have.
All right, I think you're maybe
Yeah, I mean,
what I'm saying.
help me out here.
It's not disappearing, it's moving. Bob brought up the point, is it gonna be on the spreadsheet? Yes, it is. The spreadsheet's gonna be totally different from what it was. Those items that are the annual, I call them the annual capital reserve contributions, annual road repairs, and that sort of business will be in a section on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
It will be defined in terms of the total expenditures, tax impact, all that good stuff. New business, new projects, or existing projects that are not, what do I wanna say, annual things that happen. Specific projects that are out here at 2027. Is any, if there's any money that's been encumbered, if there's any money that's been spent, like engineering and so forth,
Replace fire truck.
replace fire truck, that sort of business. Those will be in the upper section of that, which is the one that everybody's looking at to see what's gonna be the impact of this major capital spending for new projects. New projects being a new fire truck, new projects being the sewer line down North Main Street from Pickering Corner. That's gonna stay on the spreadsheet, and it'll march closer to the pin as each year drops off before the project gets started, okay?
My
And that's
concern
kinda-
is documentation of your planning.
I'm sorry?
My concern is documentation of your planning and the CIP process. The CIP process has been extremely successful for the last 12 years. When I started in 2010, our debt service was 31 million bucks for the town of Wolfeboro. As of last year, it was about 25 million bucks after we did all of these projects. And the reason why it was so successful was because of our CIP planning process. And to me, to pull stuff out of that documentation sheet and planning process, to me, it's counter to what we're trying to do here. I don't get it. You're trying to save time. Add a day, add an extra meeting.
Let me go
I
back.
guess I'm kind of perplexed because
You keep-
3 years
You keep
ago,
saying
when I,
things are gonna get pulled out of the spreadsheet. They're not gonna get pulled out of the spreadsheet. It's gonna be,
But anything on a spreadsheet has to be discussed.
I understand that. New projects get discussed. Capital reserve things go on.
They go on the spreadsheet without any discussion.
until they get within 3 years of the project being executed.
I guess, well, we have-
What about the roads?
Yeah.
You do have $1 million in roads, what are you gonna do about those? Just pass, have you guys pass and say, okay?
We,
yeah.
we have a road surface management plan that we're trying to follow.
Mhm.
So we have documents in place that give us recommendations as to what we should be doing for work. If this committee wants to follow CIP, we will do that, but I want to remind you that 3 years ago, we put slides up that on the bottom of the slide, it had the recommendation of the CIP or not, and this committee got very upset because that language was in those slides. So I'm kind of perplexed here. We will do what you guys want us to do and provide the backup. But
Jim, we're an oversight committee, so, to me, I would say the planning board and the select board have to be happy with this. If the planning board is okay with it, then I guess we have nothing to say. We can go along with our motion, but I got a problem with it, the way you're defining it. I have a problem with it.
So-
And I was there.
So let's, the public safety building, for example, it was put in as a placeholder in
Oh, probably 2018, no, years ago.
years ago. And you know how, I finally got an answer from somebody. How did you get that price tag to put on there for that project? We had no idea, we just threw something out. It was this way.
Tom?
Bob, you're not suggesting that the projects that have been approved already, that are coming up to be done, the funding for those are gonna be ignored by the committee. You're just saying that you're not going to spend an inordinate amount of time talking about it. You're gonna look at it and make sure that everything is according to Hoyle.
The projects that have already been, let's say, passed in warrant articles, all right?
Right.
Because that's the way things get passed,
Right.
okay? And CIP and everybody, you guys, we can all propose all these wonderful projects, but until the voters approve them, they don't exist,
Right.
all right? So let's say warranted projects, I'm not even gonna call them capital spending, I'm gonna call them warranted projects, will remain on the spreadsheet. They will, you know, if they were scheduled for 2027, then that's the year they're gonna appear. And every year that CIP goes on, that project comes closer and closer and closer and closer to the year of.
And there's ongoing funding going
Yes.
to those, right?
Yes, tax impacts, all that crap.
And you'll
Debt
be able
service,
to
the whole
view
shit.
that and see if it's on track.
Exactly, that's.
But at some point, you're going to have to say, we're going to put this on this spreadsheet. Whether it's a two-sentence statement or not, at some point, it's going to be discussed as briefly as it may be.
I agree.
Okay, so really,
There's no denying that.
the way the spreadsheet's coming out, it sounds like it's not gonna be a hell of a lot different than, or, excuse me, a heck of a lot different than.
It's not, it's just
Okay.
it's gonna be defined a little bit differently where existing projects and or the annual projects, if you will, the capital reserve contributions, road repairs, that sort of thing, are gonna be in a section. All of new projects are gonna be in a separate section, so that you can see the new stuff that's gonna be hitting in addition to the stuff that's ongoing.
Right.
But it'll be separate so that you can look at the tax impact of the new
Right.
stuff and the tax impact of the ongoing stuff to make a determination, this group, this committee,
Right.
the planning board, and whoever else can determine, is the debt service getting out of sight, is our capital spending getting out of sight? That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, that's what the purpose of the CIP is. When I started on the CIP, we were, in 2010, we were on the tail end of the Great Recession. And we had a lot of issues in this town. This building was a wreck, next door was a wreck, town hall was a wreck, Dockside Restaurant was a wreck. The lodge up at Abenaki was a 1940 vintage shack. And the roads were in terrible shape. This town was a mess. So what we did was, we said, we cannot do all three we call them the big three, this building, next door, and town hall. We can't do them all at the same time because we're coming out of a recession. So we took the public safety building and we pushed it out 10 years. That's why we just did it, because we pushed it out over 10 years ago. And that's part of your planning with the CIP. If you're building up too much debt service in a couple of years, then you're defeating the purpose of your capital improvement plan.
You're preaching to the choir, Bob.
Well,
I mean, you're preaching to the choir, that's exactly what we're gonna continue to do.
okay.
And you're preaching to the choir, I don't know what the problem is here.
Well, you basically told us that you were taking all these capital reserve accounts out of the discussion, out of the CIP discussion.
No, I said we were not gonna
So I
spend.
think one of the points that we need to clarify is, traditionally what would happen is, every time there was an appropriation for a capital reserve fund, this document was filled out that laid it out. You filled out that document, and that document does not define the project. That fund is how you get to the project. And we weren't doing a good job of defining our projects. We were doing a great job of defining where the money was coming from, but not of defining the project. And that's what we want the department heads to spend more time on, is defining their projects, because we're getting a lot of pressure regarding environmental concerns, whether it's stormwater, lighting, you name it. We're trying to get the department heads to focus on the project. Yes, the funding mechanism is this, and every month we get a printout from the trustees that tells us what's in each one of our accounts, every month.
Yeah, so you're not gonna do the project request anymore?
Yes, we're gonna do the project,
No,
for projects.
but not the capital reserve accounts, you're not doing them. I don't get that, I just don't get it. You put it in your CIP plan, you put it on your spreadsheet, I don't get that.
I think there's a motion on the table. Let's move it.
So where's it gonna show up in the budget? Why don't you just put everything right in the budget?
Some people want that.
Put the $1 million in the highway department for the roads and.
But you're borrowing a lot of that money, John, that's, you know,
Well, there's a germ of an idea there.
Well, no, but people, you want people to vote on this, have a say.
I like
mean,
the
that's-
CIP.
that
I remember
budget's-
when we didn't have it. We
Well,
tried to get
yeah, I mean,
formed,
that's,
you know?
I thought the system was working fine, you know, if it got bogged down in CIP, then, I haven't been there to see what's going on. It was okay when we were doing it, but you have a lot more people on the CIP now, and I guess, you have a lot more discussion. We could run through something pretty quick. You're gonna raise your hand, I'm sorry.
No. I just have a question.
Yes,
Is
Bobby.
this maybe a section where there could be another subcommittee that handles the parts that are sort of falling off with oversight from another
Well, I'm not-
subcommittee that can just handle that
We've
section?
got, I think the statute points out who can be part of the CIP, and I think we have one person, planning board has so many people, isn't that the way it's set up?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I know it's by statute how many people you can have and who can be on it.
And the statute defines that it's a planning board committee, not a budget committee.
Yeah.
It's a subcommittee of a standalone committee, but subcommittee of the planning board.
Correct.
So it's
Actually,
by
the-
statute.
The CIP is the planning board's baby, so if they say, well, we wanna do it this way, the way you're defining, that's
John, I'm
really.
trying to remember, I think it's four, is it 3 or 4 planning board members and 2 alternates, I think, and 2 at-larges or something like this?
Do you know, Leanne, do you have an idea?
There's 1 planning board representative. In the past, there's always been 2. This is the first year there's only going to be 1. And there's citizens at large, so to speak, which are members. There's budget committee representative, Governor SAU 49 representative. This year, we don't have an alternate. And the rules of procedure are posted on so I would highly recommend this committee read the rules of procedure for the CIP, which was approved by the planning board.
Thank you.
So does that mean we should table this?
Since you got that table in your mind, there's no stopping you.
I love tabling things.
Doesn't table, you just kill it?
I love going to the table.
For now.
No, I think we can all make a vote. I think, some of us have had the CIP for years, and some of us think it works good, and there's other people that don't, so I want to change it. Do you want to do a roll call, Leanne, please?
Can we hear the motion again?
Yeah,
I don't-
the motion is to
Sam.
just send an advisory note to the CIP that we don't support them changing it.
No planning
Change the
board?
current CIP.
Should we say planning board on that, or?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Well, you said to send it to CIP, should we define that as planning board?
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
The
okay.
planning board, one is in charge of the CIP.
Let's go with the chairman of the planning board.
Kathy?
Yeah.
She's also the
Chairperson.
chair of the CIP, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Bob, is again, the way it's currently set up, is it the fact that the CIP committee is pulling out each item that is anticipated for yearly funding, and are the department heads having to justify each project year in and year out?
Yes.
Yes. And do they physically come before the
Yeah.
CIP?
Yes, we do.
Is that the motion? To the planning board?
Tom Zotti's been doing it for years. He runs through
We do not support
his
the
program
change.
in 20 minutes, and he plans out till 2036. That's how good Tom, I don't know if Tom's still doing it, but Nichols maybe.
So the gain in efficiency is to eliminate that process on a yearly basis until the project is coming.
No,
Coming
it's
out.
not-
Until the project becomes imminent. It's closing in on that 3-year window. Let's get some refined pricing and go from there.
Does this preclude the CIP committee from realigning priorities or pushing projects out,
Absolutely
even though
not.
they're?
Absolutely not. That's part of the function. It's part of what we get in bogged down with a little bit, is that we get the annual stuff, and then here comes a new project, and it drops in on top. Now we go like this, okay, what do we move?
Just, if I could give you, just to punctuate the point, 3 years ago, when I sat as a selectman's representative on the CIP, a former member of the CIP wanted to have, votes on projects and wanted a member of the Board of Selectmen to vote to approve or not approve. And I said at that time, that's not where a Board of Selectmen member votes to approve or not approve a project. And so I would abstain on all of those. So I think there was an intention, not an ill-minded intention, but there was an intention to kind of rewire projects. And as a Board of Selectmen member, I said, that's what the Board of Selectmen is supposed to do. You tell us how you want to slot these things, and we'll take that under consideration.
Also, way back when, we were much more informal. There were
Yeah.
times, a lot of times we didn't even take votes. We
Right.
just, everything was a consensus, yes, and everything now in CIP is a roll call vote, which probably bogs a lot of stuff.
Tom?
Everything that I've heard, at least, seems to indicate to me that the CIP is not abrogating their responsibility to pay attention to the stuff that's been approved already. They're gonna continue to look at that and make sure that they're on track. But they're planning to spend more time on, the future projects. If that's not the case, then I would be against the change.
Well,
Well, and
yeah,
that,
that's,
you said it quite well, because that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. So
All we're trying to do is to take the yearly stuff that goes on, the capital reserve contributions, road repairs and so forth, keep them on the spreadsheet, different section, and only have the new projects up on the top of the sheet so you can see.
Good.
For example, projects that have been voted on, major projects, one-time projects, building the public station building is in there in 2025, whatever the hell. As it gets closer, if we've got price changes, that's gonna modify that number on the spreadsheet, which will also modify the debt service, which will also modify the tax impact, which also helps us if another project that we haven't even seen before comes into the bin. We've got a way of being sure that where we slot that thing is not gonna cause a spike in the debt service or capital spending, to your point.
but going back to what Tom just said, my feeling is you have to approve everything every single year, because you're gonna hand it off to the planning board to approve it, and then they hand it off to the select board for approval. So the CIP, if the CIP doesn't approve the capital reserve account every year, then the planning board, what are they approving?
The projects.
Yeah, but
The projects.
The Board of Selectmen are the ones who have the financial arm of that. Process.
I understand that, but the planning board can reject a CIP report that comes to them. And you're not giving them all the information.
How many units do you think are gonna fall in the bottom of your new spreadsheets?
8, 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
All the projects that are on the current
That's
spreadsheet,
one
probably
meeting.
7 or 8, because they're annual things.
Yeah, it's half a meeting. I don't know, you have a system in place. CIP reports to the planning board either approves or disapproves.
Well-
If they approve, they send it to the select board, the select board
At
either
the
approves or
risk of
disapproves.
irritating everybody, take it up with the planning board.
Well,
All I am is, I dropped a bomb in the middle of the floor. Sorry about that, but you'll have
Well-
to take it up with the planning
Well,
board if you
we're
don't
gonna
like
do
it.
that with this motion, I wouldn't mind speaking to Kathy about this, because Kathy Barnard, because I got a feeling Kathy might agree with us. So,
She may.
but, it's, well, I've said more than once.
Okay. Anyone else? Just so we know what the motion is, it's gonna be advisory vote to advise the planning board, the chairman of the planning board, that we do not recommend the change or support the change of the CIP process. Everybody understand that? A yes vote will be to agree to send the advisory. A no vote is no, you're not gonna do that, you don't recommend doing that. Any other questions?
Yeah. What are the changes you're disapproving?
Let's go whole thing. What do you think, whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you've talked about tonight.
Okay.
I can't imagine what else they could think of that we should cover, but I could be wrong, so. Yes,
Can I just ask something on
Certainly.
that? So if Bob didn't report something to us that they've made a change on, we're now advising? Because if you said we are sending this on every change, if he left something off advising, we're actually making a motion.
I have so much faith in Bob's ability to communicate that he's told us pretty much everything that I think should be relayed. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably something stupid that I forgot, but
Okay.
it's not worth a pinch of.
Pinch of salt.
Pinch of salt.
Okay.
But the basis of the whole thing is as I laid it out. We're not eliminating anything off the spreadsheet. We're gonna reposition stuff. The focus is gonna change a little bit.
Call the vote?
Yeah. Leanne's got to
Oh,
do
my
that.
God. You guys are killing me. Bob Tupper,
Yes.
Bobby.
Can you come back to me?
Yes. Tom Bell,
Yes.
John McDonald.
Yes.
Who's next? Bob Mulholland,
Yes.
Brian Black,
Yes.
Paul O'Brien,
No,
and Bob Lohman.
No.
And
Bobby Button.
Right.
anybody?
your
Yes.
turn again. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you,
So
thank you.
All
the
right.
motion passes
Clarification.
6-2. 6-2-0, technically. So for the sake of the minutes, how's this information getting to Kathy Barnard?
Letter? Or do you want to tell them?
Or read the minutes?
Shouldn't there be a letter from the budget committee?
Yeah, 'cause
By
It
the
should be a
chairman?
letter,
Yeah.
a letter to the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, you're
We'll
gonna
do that.
sign it?
Yep.
Okay.
With the vote.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob, I will include the vote.
Thank you.
Could I just,
I will actually include the minutes.
you should maybe Bob Tuffer could help take a look at it too, because
Yes.
he's been there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we could talk to Kathy, you know, and just tell her what you know, yeah, I would send her a letter.
Yeah, we can do that.
And maybe there's some kind of compromise.
It's down at Musgrave.
That'd be amazing.
Okay.
I never expected this.
Bob?
Me neither.
I thought I was going home early.
Take the
Bob,
order.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Jim, I'm just curious, since we've been touching on road maintenance, North Wolfeboro roads, bad. I'm just curious if we're doing anything about those roads.
Can you define which roads, please?
You got all night? I mean, Haynes Hill, Trask Mountain, Stoddard.
So again, those were presented in the 2024 budget, or 2023 budgets as projects that were going to be done this year. We've had the bid opening. Those projects for Haynes Hill, Trask, and Upper Trask are going to be underway this summer.
Just checking, 'cause they are bad.
Yeah, they're terrible. They
They're
got washed
terrible.
out.
I mean, they're washed out and they've done nothing.
But again, for your benefit, Steve Randall, 2 weeks before that gushing storm we had back in May, said those roads were in deep doo-doo, and
Mhm.
2 weeks later, they washed out.
They washed
So,
out,
you know,
oh, yeah.
He had prayed for, I think, for the bad
Yeah,
weather.
I believe the bid opening, those projects are teed up. I can't remember who's doing them, but they are taking place this summer.
Thank you.
Okay. Leanne, can you give us an update on the budget workshop that's scheduled? Do you have any of that information?
I do. I'm back and forth today. So the budget workshop is scheduled for August 3rd. There was an original ask of the committee as to what time you would prefer, either 4 or 5 p.m. It has been decided that it will be at 5 p.m. so that we can go right into our meeting at 6, because the budget committee meets here at the library at 6. Right now, the presenters are scheduled to present over at the Great Hall, but I have a request in that the presenters come here.
So we can hear them.
Well, just because our meeting is here.
No.
Yeah, but yes.
Leanne,
So, yes.
Is 1 hour enough for that?
I asked how long the presentation is, and they said 1 hour.
Thank you.
Everybody gonna be able to make that
should be.
So it'll be here though.
Yeah,
So we
well,
skipped that.
10 of it is gonna be here.
Yeah, I will get back to you when I
We don't
confirm
have
the
that.
location.
She's not here.
If anyone has a problem with that date, time, there's another time also available,
About C.
but I don't know what that is at this point.
Yeah, a number of department heads will be going through it as well.
Okay.
And NHMA will always have something in the fall as well, if you can't make it, August 3rd. So 5 o'clock, 101 budget 101 workshop, and then 6 o'clock will be our regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
John?
Yes, sir.
Discussion items, letter C, assignment reviews, updates of town department budgets.
Okay.
What's that about?
Just if anyone has any information to provide from talking to
okay.
the department heads.
All right, I don't.
It's still early in the process,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to exclude it.
Okay.
And Jim, you said that your number's gonna go out next month, your recommendation for the percentages or whatever?
Budget guidelines hopefully will be approved by the Board of Selectmen on July 19th. Department heads will receive them July 20th at the department head meeting.
Okay, let's move on to the approval of the minutes for,
Oh, no,
Oh,
other
sorry.
business.
Other-
Paul was going to discuss something.
Oh, I saw, okay, I thought that was here. Yeah, okay,
No,
yeah,
I think we decided other business.
okay. Any other business? Paul?
I asked for 10 minutes of the committee's time, and I know you guys probably want to get home early, but I think you'll like what I'm going to share with you. I've been away for 2 years. I wanted to put a dashboard together, at least for myself. This is not, if you guys want to use it, fine, if not, fine. But I felt that the only way that I could be prepared to do my role as a budget committee person was to try to take a look at what we've been doing. And this is not a, you know, if anybody wants to get worried about how did we get here, you can blame me. I was a member of the Board of Selectmen, so I participated in most of these decisions. So you can just say it's my fault. So that this fits into that. So I have a presentation. It's 4 or 5 charts. Basically what it is where are we now? It kind of looks back. I guess that TV's busted. It's where are we now? I've reviewed this with Jim. I've reviewed this with the chairman of the board. I was planning to review it with Luke, but he was in Cabo fishing. So when he gets back, I will do that. But if that doesn't work, I'll review it with you. I just didn't want to corner the meeting by having too many people. Okay, so I mean, 3 things that I think we all want to look at as we do budgets, right? There's operating expense, there's our investments, and then there's where we make our money, where we generate, how we generate revenues. And you have, you know, those monthly reports. Those are 79 pages times each month, times 12 months. That's 12,000 pieces of paper, and I can't process that kind of volume. So I tried to just look at where are we at, and so there's no judgments here. Just where are we at? First things I want to do is basic definitions, terms, net debt. And I think, Bob, I don't know whether you and I may have a difference on this one. Net debt is the balance of all of our loans for the entire town that are on the town's books at the end of the year, written on MS 535 and sent down to Concord. So that's the, that's what you get. You get your mortgage statement at the end of the year. That's net debt. All right. These are all audited financials, by the way. So what I'm going to show you, if you don't like the number, you think they're wrong, then you call the auditors. Enterprise funds. We have 4 of them, right? We got Pop Whalen, we got electric, we got water, we got sewer. And the way these things work at the, as defined by the state, is they're business entities that towns engage in, and they generate rates, right? They spend capital, they spend expense, and the objective is at the end of the year they should be generating a surplus. In the business world you'd call it a profit, but this is a surplus so that they can plow it back into their business with the ambition of trying to keep the rate structure under control. These are audited numbers that I'm going to show you. The next is warrant article capital, and these are the projects that we vote for. Fire trucks, big stuff, the stuff that CIP plays around in. And these are right off the town ballot. I went to Pat Waterman and I basically said, show me off the ballot who voted for what. So this would not include, when I get to the chart, it would not include the Libby conversation. Libby didn't make it, okay? And then there's the operating expense, the stuff we vote for, which includes capital outlay. I wasn't here last year, but I saw that we had a warrant article for a police cruiser. And I don't know whether that's a capital outlay or whether, it found its way as a town warrant. I don't know whether that's a different discussion for a later time. Anyway, here's our operating budget, right off the books. So for the past 5 years, the Board of Selectmen has proposed $146.2 million to the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee has looked at that and said $145,306. The difference between the two numbers is $1 million, or 0.66%. Okay? No judgments. It looks like we're pretty well aligned between what the Board of Selectmen thinks is an appropriate set of expenses and what the Budget Committee thinks. The Budget Committee may have gone in and re-swizzled some numbers, but by and large, if you look at the totals, we're within 0.6%, 6/6. I then looked over at this column, if my mouse is working, look at this column, and between 2019 and 2020, the budget increased 0.5%. It then increased to 2%. It then went up 3%. Last year it went up 5.8%. I have no idea where it's going, but I intend as a person, I'm going to be looking at that myself and saying, where is that going? 5-year budget growth, 11.9%, and I'll put the citations down here at the bottom so you know where I got the data. The National Labor Statistics Board for the state of New Hampshire said 5-year inflation for the state of New Hampshire, 14.7%. So good news, the budget is going up less than the rate of inflation.
Oh. You show the difference between what the Budget Committee
Yeah.
and the Board of Supervisors had.
Yeah.
How did that wind up?
What do you mean, how do you wind up?
In other words, was the Budget Committee successful or was the Board of
This
Supervisors?
is what the public voted on.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, that's what the public voted on. And if the numbers are wrong, I mean, if they're off,
Yeah, no.
It's a-
So in other words, it's the Budget Committee column
that's correct.
that was passed?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so the difference between the two is $1 million.
Mhm.
And, and when I was on the board, Jim and I would have a couple of, we fat fingered a cell and a column. There was a big delta at 119, and I think, Bob, you remember those days. That was 2019's budget. There was some-
Well, you attribute the spikes in 2022 and 2023.
I wasn't a selectman, you tell me.
Pop whaling,
This is operating expense.
Pandemic,
pandemic.
I don't know, you tell me.
yep.
And I'm not making a judgment, I just don't know,
Mhm.
all right? It's data,
Supply side chain, supply chain.
whatever. All right, this is just your operating budget and your capital outlay, okay? So then what I did, and I want to thank KC for this, I went to net debt. So net debt is how much are the mortgages of all of our outstanding loans, long-term loans, not short-term stuff, long-term loans, what's the balance of the mortgages on the books of the town? So on the left-hand side of this, say from where my crayon goes here, from here over, this is the balance sheet of our town, okay? And so our net debt general fund in 2022 closeout year, 11.883 million. All right, water fund, 2.7 million. Sewer, 3.0 million. Pop Whalen, 746,000 was net debt, okay? Electric fund, Barry, 4.6. Now, there's in here, because the auditors are still, rooting around in the books, there may be some prior period adjustments, and those are just things that happen with auditors, right? They just go in, they have to move numbers around. But at the end of this year, Bob, what did you say the net debt was that you had on the town?
Well, I'm not sure, within this, coming into this year, prior to, I guess, the latest additions to our debt service, we were around 25 mil.
23,048 at the end of 2022.
I guess that's around 20.
Close enough, right? Now, we still may be making, or Casey may be making some adjustments with the auditors, and that's why there's a footnote that says not complete. There may be some monies that were spent in '23 that has to go back into '22. So they'll mess around with that. So this is balance sheet. I took an average of our balance sheet over the period. We're now carrying 19.1 million of debt on our balance sheet, okay, on average. And the net debt has grown in this town from 17 million to 23. That's a 32.5% increase in net debt.
Yeah, but 12 years ago, it was 31 million.
This is just data. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. This is just data. When I reviewed this with Jim, I went over here and this is the debt service. Debt service is the income statement of the town, and that's how much we actually wrote a check, pay to the order in the New Hampshire Bond Bank, a check. So our debt service at the end of 2022 was 1.67 million. We wrote $1,670,000 worth of debt checks. Okay? We're averaging about 1.4 million.
Does that include the sewer debt
Yes.
service?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is all in.
Okay.
Okay? And the debt service payments over the period, if you just take the 9/11 and go 9/11 to 1670, debt service payments are going up 83%. Now, I understand that, 15 years ago, it went that way. All I'm observing here as I look at this, do you need the keys to lock up?
Yes.
Yes. All I'm observing here as I do this is, and you'll see it a little later on, is we're putting a lot of CapEx on our balance sheet. Okay? And we know that when you buy stuff, you start having to spend stuff a little later on. Okay? Now, one of the things I'll observe, and Jim and I talked about this, is if you look at the debt service number, $1.6 million, that's in large part because of getting some decent rates from the bond bank, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Getting some good, got good numbers out of the bond bank. And you'll see in the next chart, I couldn't figure out some of these things that were in warrant articles the past year that would have shown up here of forgiveness loans. We do half, we get half back. So I couldn't figure some of that stuff out. But congratulations to the town for doing a fairly good job getting decent rates out of the bond bank. The question looking forward is, what's that going to look like? This is another squint chart, and I apologize. It only has 3 years worth of data. And the reason it only has 3 years worth of data is calendar year 22 is under the auditor's look. There's nothing wrong, they're just messing around with it. Those pieces of paper that we have, that we get from KC, times 12, are just about synthesized into this chart, with the exception of the general fund. Pull the general fund off to the side. But this chart here just synthesizes all that stuff we look at. So the way you read this chart is, water fund is generating about $1,863,000 in revenue in 19, $1,892,000 in 20, 1954 in 21. The expense is the directly assigned expense, although I will tell you that Casey and I are having a conversation about, are we truly assigning all expenses to these enterprise funds? I just want to know. All right, it's not that anybody's playing a shell game, but you want to make sure that you're assigning all of your costs to your funds. So as an example, the sewer fund, pretty consistent on revenues, right? $1,051,000 over the period, but it's showing an operating deficit for 3 consistent years. Okay? Pop Whalen, what I don't know when Pop Whalen and Casey and I will get together, it's not that she hasn't answered me, but every year, does the town still appropriate $100,000 for prepaid ice time? So I can't figure out, I couldn't find it, and I haven't just looked, I just ran out of time. I can't figure out whether the $100,000 for Pop Whalen it's on the revenue side or the expense side. I just don't know. I'll find out.
Well, the town buys ice time.
Correct.
So in essence, we are supplementing the enterprise fund because we're buying ice time. And I quite frankly, I've never checked the amount of revenue coming in to close that. And plus with the sewer fund, The sewer fund doesn't pay for itself because the debt service is being paid for out of the general fund.
So that even makes the problem worse.
So, the bottom line is, if the sewer enterprise fund has to pay all of its debt service, then every business in town's gonna close up.
Well, if the sewer fund has to pay all of its bills, then rates will have to go up.
Oh, enormously so.
Got it. So the question then becomes, and I understand,
Yeah.
we're not having a policy conversation, I'm telling you what I see. So I got a $480,000, what do you call, hotspot there, and you got a $39,000 over there. Where do those two numbers get topped off? And the answer is general taxation. So the taxpayer is topping off those surplus, those deficits in those funds. I'm not saying that's a good idea, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, that's what is, okay? That's where we are.
But that's not what's happening.
But it is what's happening.
It's being carried, no, the deficit in the fund is being carried over to the following year.
But it has to be paid off. Somebody has to pay your salary as a sewer fund person. Somebody has to pay your truck gas bill as a sewer fund person. So it's
Okay.
getting paid off.
I get that.
And so what I'm gonna try to look a little harder in here is on Pop Whalen. And you can tell that Pop Whalen is not, this doesn't show anything for the ice arena. I don't know whether that $100,000 is in the 259 or is it in the 298.
You know what?
I asked Linda once and she told me the answer and I forgot it.
They're brand new now, Paul, that's a brand new enterprise fund now, the numbers are all different now.
Well, and you'll see my last chart is, I really want to try to help us all understand if you're assigning the right cost of the funds, okay? They are what they are. If you assign the cost of the funds and the funds show that they're in deep stuff, it is what it is. It doesn't imply that you immediately go out and raise sewer rates. It just implies that that sewer function is consistently going to be a confiscatory piece on the business. That's all it is. You're going to figure out how to fund it. So then I looked at warrant articles, and this, what I did here is I went to Pat Waterman and I grabbed the ballots. I just said, Pat, give me all the ballots signed, all the warrant. So this does not include the petition. So in 2023, I think there was a petition for some gardening work and John Thurston's petition. I didn't include those.
The playground?
The playground,
Carpenter.
okay. And what I haven't done as good a job as I want to, but I will. I want to break out the warrant articles by fund. So right now, the warrant article that I had is general and Pop Whalen. I would like to have a general fund warrant article category, Pop Whalen, NED, and then water and sewer as well. So here's how you look at this. And I can do running averages, but general fund warrant article capital is up 60.72% over the period. General and Pop Whalen. Now, yes, that includes the ice arena. Okay? And I think it also includes the public safety building.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big jama. And then the next is the MED, that's Barry. And the next is water and sewer. And then total capital in 2019 was around 6.98 million. So your two that you talked about in the CIP, we must have added 4 million to that. We had to.
Well, I'm losing you there. That's six.
So you said you wanted to keep, remember at CIP, we always wanted to keep the CapEx around 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was 6.9 and 19, so
No,
let's assume it was 2.
6.9 cash?
6.9 CapEx.
What does that mean, CapEx?
$6,978,700 was sent to the voters in 2019 as warrant articles.
Bonded or?
Well, this is not bonded, this is just gross.
Cash warrant articles?
This is
6.9?
gross. Whether they were bonded or not is a
Well,
different
no,
discussion.
the 2 mil is cash warrant articles. That's where,
So then we bonded $4.9 million worth of,
that was going to happen, Paul.
I know, I'm just saying what is.
Right.
I'm not arguing there was a bad idea. I was here at the time.
You gave us a number of 25 mil or 23 mil for debt service.
Correct.
And next year, we'll be approaching 40 mil when we borrow for the public
In
safety
fact,
building.
the other night, I think, did KC come forward? She was $8 million the other night came in.
So we've broken the bond for public safety into 2 installments. installments.
Right,
The first installment should be coming in August.
right.
And the second installment should be coming in August of next year. The thought process is in case we receive a grant fund of some sort, we
There you go.
wouldn't want to bond that grant funding.
So Bob, this chart on the warrant article is just, it's what we went to the voters and said, we would like you to give us $6.9 million of capital. How we pay for all of that, we'll tell you, right? So that number, if you sum those numbers, that number, lower right-hand corner, says that our warrant article capital is up 173% over the 5-year period. Okay? And so you'll see on the lower left-hand corner, I need to do a better job, which I will, assigning CapEx to the enterprise funds. I want to be able to assign those much better. Now, here's a summary. Net debt up 37%. So those are the mortgages. Okay? Warrant article capital, 2.73 times where it was in 2019. Sewer and Pop Whalen funds, negative over the period. All right? Operating expense up 12%. Debt service up 83%. That debt service does not include the arena, your point about the arena or the public safety building. And I need to continue to look at costs and capital and how those get assigned. And then I turn my attention, and I have had some conversations with some of Jim's leadership team, and I tried this with Brad as well, just to kind of get a sense of, where do you think, what's the center of gravity of what we're going to be looking at as a town? And it's not a perfect ranking, but from top to bottom, this is kind of the stuff that some people are looking at. Water and sewer infrastructure maintenance is going to be a big issue next year, I think. Road service management plan, the Stantec road service management plan, which we paid a pretty hefty amount of money for, is being updated. And Steve Randall showed me why it needed to be updated, and that's fine. I don't know whether we're going to have water quality projects or not, but we just closed a beach and a lake, and I think that we might have some water quality projects coming up to town.
The geese arrived.
The geese have arrived. You saw that too. My pet peeve is building maintenance, and Jim and I have talked about that. I mean, we should maintain what we have and not, be done with it. Pop Whalen, there was you guys had a business plan last year that you read for the Pop Whalen? You have the business plan? Because I'd like to get a copy of it.
It was presented to us. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know Vic Druin?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got it.
He's got it. Not.
Well, he's the.
Is it in this minute? I'll find it. Never mind. The public safety building, there'll be I'm sure some stuff happens. The Libby, and then Jim, wages, healthcare, insurance, and I met with the police chief and with Steve Wood, and I think they probably have some discussions they want to have about public safety issues. And then our favorite projects from CIP, discussions at planning and zoning boards. These discussions at planning and zoning boards could have a direct effect on water capacity and sewer capacity, right? So that's my dashboard. There's no judgments in this. This is just where we are. And what I plan to do is, as we go through this cycle, I'll just populate numbers underneath. They won't be guess numbers, they'll be real numbers. And then we can just kind of stand back and look at them and say, where are we going, all right? So I appreciate you giving me the time.
What were our total revenues increased over 5 years?
Total revenues for the town?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I'd like to see those in comparison to our debt increases.
If I could, I think the revenues, unless I misunderstand, revenues and the operating budget are about one and the same, aren't they, Bob? They're pretty close. Except for
Actually,
fees.
no, Paul, we have seen an incredible increase in revenues over the last few years. And motor vehicle registrations went up incredibly so over the past few years. And the exact numbers we'd have to pull out, but
I probably could do that, but
yeah.
honestly, Brian, I'm probably not gonna do it
Paul,
anytime soon.
Paul, you missed a couple of things.
What did I miss?
Well, number one, not this past March, but the March before,
Right.
we had a situation where we had a lot of projects that there was a lot of money attached to the projects that was coming to us if we approved the projects. I'm talking about American Rescue Plan
Yeah, ARPA.
Act.
ARPA
Right,
money, yeah.
I'm talking about private donation
Yeah.
from the Friends of
Yeah.
Pop Whalen.
Yeah,
I'm talking about citizen donations
Yeah.
in the case of that,
yeah,
what's the name of that street, going down to Winter Harbor, Jim, forget. So we felt, or at least that the opinion that I expressed to this committee was that a couple of the pump stations, Mill Street and Lana
Right.
Street,
brutal.
I think they were paid for, those projects. So my argument was, hey, if we don't jump on these projects, we're leaving a ton of money on the table.
Right,
You see, that's not in your calculation.
not at all.
And we
But let me
did,
tell you what's in my calculation, though. What's in my calculation is audited
right,
financials reported to the state of New Hampshire.
right. Now,
So if there's something that, you know, if there's something in there that we missed, let Casey know, because we'd have to go back and adjust the book.
well, we, you know,
Audited financials reported to the state of New Hampshire.
we've always have a wonderful audit, but let me, I really wanna get a little further with this, because we knew that one of the reasons our intent was to get our debt service down with these capital reserve accounts and higher cash spending, because we knew what was coming down the road. So we got the debt service down from 31 million down to 25 million, because we knew we had, they were talking 16 million bucks next door.
Got it.
And all these other projects that are on the horizon,
Got it.
will bring up debt service.
I
There's nothing
agree.
we can do about that.
I'm not saying we
So-
can do anything, I'm just telling you what it is.
Let me tell you something else now. The state of New Hampshire says you can borrow up to 3% of your assessed value. Right now, our assessed value is 2,420,000,000 ballpark.
Right.
It's probably, next year, it's probably gonna go up a lot more.
Yeah, we're at
So,
65% valuation.
well, I was told 60.
Yeah,
About a month.
65 or something.
Okay, whatever.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Goes
so-
to 3 billion.
So we're at, as I said, 2,420,000,000. We'll look, 3% of that is approximately 75%. So not this past year, the prior year, I made the argument that we are well within our boundaries, or well within our limitations to borrow. And we are also, you know, and we also live by that $2 million, you know, so this is stuff that we had to do.
So just to try to answer your question, if you want to know what the revenues are, it'd be the sum of 31,225, okay? Or if you wanted to just the 145,306. Add to that Pat Waterman's business, all right? Just add to that. The other stuff that's coming in, you could probably add the enterprise funds to it of $1 million, but you could, that's about it. You're probably about 150 million. Okay, I don't know what Pat's doing for
Well,
registration.
you also have to count as revenue all the ARPA funds that are coming in, and all the private donations that are coming in. They come into your revenue sheet.
I'll be more than happy to talk to Casey about it again. I'll
Well,
just
that's-
repeat that what I'm showing you is audited financials
Right.
sent to the state of New Hampshire. So if there's something wrong with these numbers, speak up.
Well,
I'm not challenging you, but
No,
you know,
well, listen.
that's the only way I can do things, is I look at what is audited, what is on the books, what are we reporting to the state? If those numbers aren't right, then we can change them.
well, I learned from Pete Chamberlain, so.
Yes, sir. I took too much of your time. I
You know,
apologize.
what would be helpful with looking at these slides, if there were a way to show the benchmarks,
What benchmark?
you know, the benchmarks of allowable debt service to either town capital or revenues, and then this way we could get a sense for relativity. The other thing might be, I don't know if you.
Help me some more with the benchmark. Help
Well, I
us
mean,
more.
there's
Like
allowable
what percent of our
benchmark.
total book could we borrow against?
Yeah,
What's the allowable amount of unrestricted fund balance we can have? You can look that up.
fine.
But this is
That would be
mine.
helpful,
This is
is
just
what
mine.
I'm saying. Just
Yeah.
this way we know whether we're
Yep.
underwater or above water. The
Oh,
other
I think
thing-
the town, from a financial point of view, if you look at the amount of unrestricted fund balance we have, and you look at our ability to raise capital, I mean, we're fine. A subjective opinion. The question then is, what's the, you know, where are we going? And that'll be the next thing we'll just look at, that's all. Where are we going? Okay, I took too much of your time, thank you.
Well, we've had a very clean audit.
Always.
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 Always. A
Never a
clean-
conditional audit.
Right.
So that would tell you that if there's, and I don't know, you know, maybe you guys do, because I wasn't around when the ARPA money came running out the door. So if those ARPA funds and forgiveness grants, because they saw those in some of the warrant.
Oh, yeah.
If those ARPA funds were not factored in, well, they had to be factored in,
Yes,
the auditors.
they
would
were,
say.
yeah.
So this is,
This is stuff you had to do. I mean, we had 2 pump stations built in the 1930s.
I know. Okay, thank you, John, I appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Our rating is the same. They're not involved.
Jim, did you want to have anything to say about the presentation before we move on?
Jim, what is our rating? Isn't our rating, our financial rating, about the same as the New Hampshire Bond Bank right now?
AAA.
So we're financially in good shape currently.
AAA.
Yeah. I think another thing that's important is all those budgets are approved by the voters.
Right.
And we do have some issues with the sewer department, and if we want to have dirty water, dirty lakes, and we don't help fund the sewer department, one of the higher rates in the state, don't fund the sewer department. So I think we realize that if you want to have a nice clean community, nice clean lake, even though I don't use the water system or the sewer system, I'm willing to pay my share to maintain that quality, that living quality within the community. You know, sometimes it's the same with Parks and Rec. I don't know what it costs to send a child to a week's program as far as our cost. I'm sure we'll lose money on that, but it's something we do as a community. You know, so we can't charge $1,000 for a kid to go to Parks and Rec group. We can charge $100, and that keeps the kid off the street and hopefully makes him have a more enjoyable summer. So there's just some things that we've got to step up and pay for that we may not benefit from directly anyhow.
Bob, you'd know better than I. What years were the sewer moratorium in town?
I think we're looking, well, Linda, I think, would be the expert on that, but I'm thinking we're looking around the area of 2004 to 2006, somewhere's in there.
I think it was later than that.
Okay.
I know that we were looking to build a lot in 2005, and there was still a sewer moratorium there, and I believe it went on for a few years at least after that. I think it went to 2008.
Well, I would say, yeah, at least, because the rapid infiltration basins didn't come online until 2009. I believe they came online in April of 2009, and within months they failed.
That's right.
There was a 2010 deliberative session that Mr. Ford, at the high school, where Dave Ford had a conversation in public with that.
Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, well, yeah. So it goes back that far. In fact, I know, believe back then, the town officials were talking about a second water treatment plant down next to Brewster Beach. Down, in fact, they were planning on that. They laid out and repaved Clark Road from one end to the other. And while they did that, they changed all the water mains. And in anticipation of that water treatment plant, they put a 12-inch main between Brewster Beach area and South Main Street. So it was very helpful to us because we were getting a lot of brown water. We got new water mains. We're very, very happy about that. But we have a 12-inch main in the ground. Now I'm hearing that we're starting to worry about Upper Beach Pond's capacity again, and so I don't know where we're going with that. That's another thing I'm thinking about looking forward is, are we looking at a second water treatment plant?
And is that, pardon me, is that the HR report that talks about beach ponds capacity, Jim?
No, so if I remember correctly, in the 2010, 2014 range, there was a water capacity study performed. I have had a conversation with Underwood Engineers. They are looking at our water treatment plant for capacity, for build-out, based on the previous model that was in play and what they see going forward. While that plant is going through rehabilitation right now, one of the concerning parts of it is it can only operate at 70%. That 70% is full capacity for that plant. So that's being looked at, and we're also looking, if you recall, you received a document last year, which I think laid out 42% of unaccounted for water or something like that. So that's an area of improvement that will help us to be able to clearly understand what our build-out in the future may be.
Jim, I'm wondering about one spot about us maybe losing water. Should I try and reach out to Steve Randall on that and talk to him about that?
Probably not. You can let me know and I can.
Okay, all right. And it's gonna have to do with the Green Street project, I think, but I suspect there might be a spot that we might be losing water there, so.
Is that the crossover line? That crosses back over?
I believe Green Street water main feeds Beers Hall, and if there's a leak under there, it would wind up out on Brewster Field, across from Clark Road, because there are times when there's growth over there between the rock wall and Clark Road Field. There's growth over there, and there are times where they have 18 inches of water sitting in that growth. So I'm wondering if
we're off topic here.
if Beers Hall might be.
Bob, I think we're off topic.
Yeah. Well, I did ask,
So, yeah, reach out, actually, you could reach out to Steve because that is one of his construction projects he's managing this year.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next thing.
One more thing, I just wanted to tell Paul, and I understand debt's very, very important. I look at my tax bill for the last 17 years, and the tax bill on my house has gone up about 30% over the last 17 years. So I look at the cost of cars, food, staples, gasoline, salaries that people make, and I think over the last 17 years, my house has actually probably a better value for my tax bill now than it was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
The town's operating budget's only gone up 11.9, inflation's been 14.7, congratulations.
Well,
I think the town's done a great job.
that's 5 years, right? I'm talking 17 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
12 years
let's move on to the minutes of April 22nd. Anybody have any changes? Bobby, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Under section 3, the vote for, Bob Tupper to appoint John McDonald, I actually abstained because there wasn't a discussion on that. And then I just
Okay.
want to make sure under committee assignments for town departments, that there was a fix to Parks and Recreation, that Bob Tupper is also on there.
You want to make a note that you abstained on the first paragraph, right?
First motion.
Well,
Yeah.
no, 3, next one down.
Where it says it was moved by Bob Tuffer to appoint John
Okay.
McDonald. I abstained on that vote because there was no discussion.
Okay.
And then under section 3, where it says committee assignments of town departments, I just want to make sure that under Parks and Recreation, that
It's
it
been
has
changed.
Bob
All
Tuffer.
set?
It's been changed.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, somewhere, and I don't know where, if I need to go back and look, I'll do it. I think I had asked a question about could we have these meetings at Town Hall. And not to put words in your mouth, John, I think you spoke and said people can't hear. So I don't know where that was. And on the committee assignments, hopefully you'll indulge me. The only way I can learn about our town again is I'll call and talk to other people if they want to call and talk to me. So I volunteered to do all of these, all the town departments.
Okay, let's stick with what we've got. I appreciate you stepping up like that. It's gonna be hard, Paul, for you, because you've been a selectman before, and you had a lot more authority back when you were selectman than we do on the budget committees. We just wanted to try to keep everything divvied up.
I appreciate that, John, and I'm not gonna be intrusive. First thing I do is ask Jim's permission to do things.
Okay.
And I just don't want to, I wanna come to meetings prepared. I always believe you should do that. So I can't be prepared if I don't have an insight of what's going on.
So there's all these other ones that.
You all set, Bobby?
No, I just, the rest of the assignments, is that somewhere on there, and I'm just cut off on my page?
Second page
at the top.
Yeah.
Mine's on the
I
second
got
page.
page number 1 on the front, and number 4 on the back.
Yeah, but then we're missing the rest, because you
How
also
about-
had,
How about these? You have them?
oh, I don't have that on mine, it got cut off.
Now you
Of
got
my
it.
copy.
Now you got it.
Okay.
Are we still missing stuff, or are we all set?
My copy
Your
didn't
copy?
have the rest of them.
Okay. Are you happy with, have you seen the corrected copy, the white copy? Okay.
You had,
You have page 2 now?
I got a page too, because I printed it, I'm digital,
Oh, yeah, we can all go on there.
Yeah, you got it.
instead of depending on packets.
Page 2 and 3.
Me too. And I'm paying online now, automatic payment.
The one that has the 2 and 3, do you see anything from Paul about the town hall in your copy?
I didn't find it in mine.
Do you have 2 and 3?
No, I digitally looked at it too, and I didn't
Okay.
find it, so. No matter, I mean, it's an.
Yeah, I think
it's an
we were talking
academic
about
point.
the noise, and also you had asked about having a live feed here at
Correct,
the library, but they don't have the ability.
I do recall that.
right.
Doesn't matter.
I do recall a live feed discussion, because if we're gonna be here,
plus there will be enough.
Can't do public comment unless people, muster and come in here, they can't even call in, so, that's kind of why I was asking.
Okay.
John,
Yes, sir.
I just before we leave, I suggested to you and anybody who has a town department that's going to CIP to present something, it wouldn't be a bad thing for the member that has that department as a subcommittee to go to that CIP meeting to understand what it's about, it's kind of an educational experience, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, any other changes?
Do you have all your pages?
No, I don't.
apparently. they
Yeah,
didn't.
because you
Put
want
off the approval of this until we get all the pages.
You want to take a look at it now?
In your email,
yeah, I got my
could have
email.
read it.
I don't have to do it.
Don't mind.
Yeah, when's the next meeting, Leanne?
August 3rd after
August
the
3rd.
workshop.
Yeah, we'll continue this till August 3rd, to give a chance to everyone to look at everything. And just making a notation, Leanne, if you can, of what Bobby's brought up, what we've mentioned up to this point, please.
Yeah, I will correct them and repost the draft on the website.
The stuff that you sent me yesterday, Leanne, for 91A training, that's on a webpage, you can watch that on the webpage?
You just click on the link and it'll pop right up to it was recorded, so I
Okay,
think.
does anyone want to see
Did
that?
Bob, and
91A?
I know I registered for it, did you register for it?
Yeah, I
And
attended
that's
it.
why we got,
That's why you got the link.
that's why we got
Okay.
the link.
So I think if
then-
you attended it, you get the live link. I
Right.
have it, yeah, if you didn't, you,
But I did send out
You
the
did?
live
Yeah.
link, so
So
all you
even
have to
if
do is
people
click
aren't
on
registered,
it.
can they just click on it and they'll get the training?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's why I sent
it's
it.
good.
Wonderful. Okay, any other more public comment from anyone?
Well, the only one I have is, Paul, if you have a presentation like that again, I think it would be helpful if you sent it out to all the board members in advance so they could see it, digest it, call you for questions, ask you questions about it,
Sure.
to understand, because it's difficult to digest everything
Yeah.
that you've looked at for 3 weeks and then.
It wasn't a present, I appreciate that. I spent time with the town manager and the chairman, and this is not what we adopt, this is just how I intend to do
Oh, yeah,
it.
but it'd be-
I just didn't want to quorum meetings, I
Yeah,
find that trouble.
It'd be valuable, it's valuable information, but it's nice to see it in advance.
Well, if you send us all an email, it's an illegal meeting, so be careful.
Right.
I know you went to training because you got.
I know we wrote you a letter about that.
Just BCC.
Okay, we don't have anything else, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor
No,
say
no,
aye.
no, it wasn't.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, have a great Fourth of July.
Thank you.